Herald of Galactus. This is a state that shouldn't exist in any coherent power hierarchy, and yet it keeps showing up where it makes the least sense. A mortal being elevated to serve a cosmic entity that consumes worlds, that's the basic pitch. But the mechanics of it have shifted so many times across the records that pinning down what it actually means takes some doing. The power scaling is the variable that defies categorization. Norrin Radd, known as the Silver Surfer, is the most recognized Herald of Galactus, with several others including Nova, Terrax, Firelord, Airwalker, Redshift, and Morg the Merciless having taken on the role over time. But the counter-evidence matters too. The records are not a clean escalation ladder. Subscribe and tell us in the comments which ultimate form you think was the most narratively useful. Let's get back into it. Spirit of Vengeance. The previous entry involved a character elevated into a role that transformed their power level. This one involves something entirely different, wearing a name it has no legitimate claim to. The Spirit of Vengeance designation has been claimed, contested, reassigned, and misrepresented so many times across the records that tracking the actual entity behind the name requires starting from scratch each time the designation appears. A demon known as Zarathos has been associated with the Ghost Rider, who usually possesses a mortal host, resulting in powers and transformations shared across different characters, including Johnny Blaze. The Ghost Rider transformation features superhuman strength, accelerated healing, a supernatural chain weapon, and abilities that vary depending on the host and source and story. The Ghost Rider's most prominent power is the Penance Stare, which inflicts torment on its target by confronting them with the suffering they've caused. The escalation in power across the recorded appearances of the state is where the designation starts to break down as a coherent category. The human host functions as a limiter on power that the entity itself would otherwise express without restraint. Maker. The spirit-bound ultimate form we just left behind at least had the decency to keep its host alive. What we're dealing with here is worse. A human being who lost his soul, his world, and every moral tether he ever had, and kept all of his genius. Reed Richards from Earth 1610 survived the collapse of his universe during Secret Wars and arrived in Earth 616 as the Maker. No conscience, no limit, no reason not to use every trick in the Fantastic Four playbook for Total War. And then it gets more complicated because Maker didn't arrive as a clean slate. He brought with him knowledge of the ultimate universe, including its distinct cosmology and perspective shaped by its history. He began infiltrating Earth 616's institutions, leveraging his scientific expertise and background. He worked covertly to undermine superhero institutions, using knowledge and intelligence to further his goals. His power set is, on paper, identical to Mr. Fantastic's: superhuman elasticity, shape-shifting, mass redistribution, molecular manipulation, genius-level intellect spanning every scientific discipline. But where Reed Richards builds bridges, Maker builds weapons. Where Reed Richards extends himself to save a collapsing building, Maker extends himself to crush it, or to insert himself inside every critical system as a living, shape-shifting surveillance device. He impersonated Mr. Fantastic using his elasticity and intelligence to mimic his counterpart convincingly. That impersonation eventually collapsed when Reed's family exposed him, but Maker didn't stop. He pivoted to longer game strategies, manipulating underground economies, funding villainous operations, seeding technology that would only mature into threats years later. Maker drew inspiration from alternate universe Reed Richards and their varied ethical paths. The Reed who chose himself above every other consideration, who decided that a universe without his guidance was a universe that deserved to be fixed, by force if necessary. He wasn't trying to save the world, he was trying to own it, because in his mind, nobody else had proven competent to run it. Worldbreaker Hulk. The Illuminati sent Bruce Banner to Sakaar, hoping to eliminate the Hulk threat. They were wrong in ways that would burn 3 continents before they understood how wrong. Where the Maker operates from labs and shadows, the Worldbreaker arrives on the back of a warbound army and doesn't bother with infiltration. He just hits you. In the months following his exile, Hulk didn't die on Sakaar as planned. He survived, conquered, and assembled a coalition of warriors who would follow him into any fire. Korg, Miek, the Brood Warriors, Hiroim the Shaman, and Eloe Kaifi, among others, multiple battles during his time as a gladiator on Sakaar. When the ship that exiled him detonated and killed the woman Banner had come to love, Kyera, he stopped being a man with a rage problem and became a force with a score to settle. The Illuminati discovered the exact cost of their decision when Hulk's Warbound arrived in New York. He fought the Avengers, defeated Black Bolt, and challenged Doctor Strange. The Warbound laid waste to Manhattan in a single engagement. The Sentry was able to fight Hulk in a climactic battle that exhausted both. Iron Man used a specialized armor built to fight Hulk, but it proved insufficient. Worldbreaker Hulk represented Bruce Banner's anger and power at its peak. Defenders point to the eventual stalemate, the Sentry fight, the apparent mutual destruction, as evidence that the Worldbreaker had a ceiling, that no version of Hulk could truly outrun the fact that Bruce Banner was still somewhere in there. The problem with that reading is what came after. When the Worldbreaker's rage finally burned down, it wasn't because Banner reasserted control, it was because the Illuminati satellite, the one they'd used to exile him, had malfunctioned and destroyed Sakar's core, killing Kyera's people and every world Hulk had spent 3 years fighting to protect. The Warbound scattered. Hulk's anger threatened massive destruction until the Sentry intervened to stop him. What makes the Worldbreaker Hulk matter isn't the punch. It's the chain of human decisions that created it. 5 men sat in a room, decided a gamma-irradiated physicist was too dangerous to keep alive, exiled him to a death world, and then acted surprised when he came back angrier than the laws of physics said he should be. The Illuminati's actions led to Worldbreaker Hulk's emergence, Iron Fist. Worldbreaker Hulk raged until the world trembled, but the Iron Fist doesn't just tear up the battlefield, he rewrites the rules for everyone who steps onto it. When Danny Rand ascends to the ultimate level, the result isn't another muscle-bound powerhouse, it's unfiltered mystical escalation radiating from a single human being to an entire city, and sometimes the world. We're talking about a lineage that doesn't just hand out a glowing fist or a few extra chi tricks. In the mainline 616 continuity, Ascension grants the Iron Fist dominion over the ultimate kung fu, with feats that should be impossible for a mortal. Start with the proof, where the Iron Fist not only channels the power of the dragon and this doesn't just affect the wielder, the chi surge of a true ultimate Iron Fist floods the spiritual fabric of Earth 616, empowering or outright disabling other magic wielders in the vicinity. When the heart of the dragon is endangered, the Iron Fists. The power is not only offensive, at his apex, nobody else's ascension warps the rules for so many at once. The skeptics always get loud here. Are you telling me the Iron Fist beats everyone, every time? That's revisionist history. Ultimate Iron Fist doesn't win by default. He wins by rewriting the game's logic. When Danny Rand reaches his true final form, even Doctor Strange, and who knows a thing or two about power, has to recalibrate. In 2018's timeline, that's not stronger punching, that's category dominance. What does all this escalation prove? Every so-called ultimate form in Marvel comes with a catch, a sphere of influence. The Final Mutation, but if one ascension remakes the field for everyone, the next form boils it all down to a single brutal endpoint. The moment Wolverine isn't just a mutant weapon, but the species' proof that nature always wants a sharper edge. It's not about Berserker Rage or Weapon X programming anymore. In Earth 616, Final Mutation means seeing the mutant healing factor go thermonuclear, splicing every evolutionary survival trick into one, and turning pain into pure offensive evolution. The hard figure is this. On page it is. But this isn't healing as you've ever seen it. Instead of becoming unkillable because of luck or plot armor, the mutation itself becomes the unstoppable force. One arc clocks the body count. That's the design. The Final Mutation is a knife that sharpens every time you try to break it. One number makes the difference. On panel, the phenomenon usually gets mistaken for healing factor overload or the unbreakable will trope that follows every stored-up Berserker moment. But the line is simple. Healing gets him back to zero, adaptation propels him forward. Wolverine crouched in a circle of burning adamantium, the shape of a monster hammered into something that survives the very worst Earth 616s can throw at it. No conclusion, just the quiet certainty that when the dust settles, the next step is always his to take. Old Man Phoenix. This one makes the last entry look like a success story, where Final Mutation pushed an already evolved Wolverine past his known limits and still came up short. This form takes the opposite version of the same character, the age-broken, universe-hopping old man who got beaten by Red Wolf, and bonds him directly to the Phoenix Force, producing a threat so far beyond anything the old timeline ever produced that the Avengers couldn't stop it with anything they had. The mechanics are brutally specific. That distinction matters more than it sounds. This isn't a Wolverine with some cosmic tricks. Here's where it gets worse. The form wasn't a natural evolution. The objection writes itself. Someone will say this is just a variant of the same Phoenix Force gimmick applied to a different character. No more novel than Rachel Summers or Quentin Quire or any of the other hosts. That objection misses the specific variable that makes this form unique. The single sentence that will get repeated tomorrow, Phoenix Force. And before you say this is just another cosmic entity with big powers, it isn't. Every other ultimate form on this list is something a character achieves, works toward, or is transformed into. That creates a problem this video has been dancing around. Every form examined here, Herald of Galactus, Spirit of Vengeance, Lifebringer Galactus, God Emperor Doom, represents a character attaining a state of supreme power within the existing cosmic order, Rune King Thor. For once, you can't blame cosmic power on some primordial force beyond comprehension. The Phoenix burns through like hosts and rewrites realities, but its gifts come with all the baggage of being an ancient universal entity, external, conditional, and never entirely personal. Rune King Thor doesn't just break those rules, he buries them, and proves the line between vessel and creator was never as strict as cosmic experts pretended. In 2004's Thor na AD, it's 85, Thor doesn't simply inherit strength from an external source or unlock a secret weapon stashed in the cosmos. He does something fatally unprecedented. He sacrifices not just his power, but his entire identity as the Odin son, passes Odin's Odin sleep and wisdom rituals, and takes runic magic directly into himself. Crucially, this is not standard Asgardian sorcery. Rune magic represents the foundational language of the cosmos, the scripting layer beneath reality, and Thor achieves this by gouging out his own eye in the world tree, replicating but surpassing Odin's sacrifice. The creators didn't drag out the process either. Thor's transformation happens in a handful of issues, but the shift is absolute. He learns cosmic knowledge and defeats powerful foes, displaying powers beyond Odin's, including confronting the fates, something not even Allfather Odin dared touch. In effect, he rewrites the rules that supposedly bound every god, demon, and force of nature. For researchers trying to catalog ultimate forms, Rune King Thor is the headache that won't go away. They went looking for a rulebook, dividing external power-ups from innate upgrades. You're supposed to either borrow the strength or grow into it over centuries. Thor skips that entirely, fusing external cosmic scripting with literal self-overwriting. The usual boundaries, Asgardian power, magic, prophecy, simply dissolve on contact. If you ask a Norse scholar or comics theologian to justify why this is allowed, why runes outrank Phoenix fire and celestial technology, they stumble. There's no precedent for a hero erasing the universal system and declaring himself architect by choice, not bloodline or tool. A diehard Marvel continuity keeper might try to nitpick the edges, arguing that Thor needed the World Tree's energy as an external catalyst or that other gods meddled in his transformation. But Thor stands alone, surpassing Odin and fate by his own action. All investigator objections end up skating around the principal fact. Thor's ascension is unprecedented as he directly transcends all previous Asgardian limits through his own actions. So the inevitable conclusion sits out in the open. The system of borrowed power, inheritance, and cosmic chains was never as hardwired as the lore keepers claimed. Thor didn't exploit a loophole. He demonstrated the flexibility of cosmic laws in Marvel's continuity, Lifebringer Galactus. When most cosmic forms act like distant, once-in-an-era phenomena, Lifebringer Galactus represents a pivot from devourer to cosmic creator, drastically impacting Marvel's cosmic landscape. Following the events of Secret Wars, Galactus is transformed by the Ultimates, changing his cosmic role for the first time in Marvel history. He ceases destroying worlds and begins to create life, challenging previous cosmic expectations. Galactus's new status causes widespread reaction throughout the cosmic hierarchy. Galactus as an eternal predator made sense, anchoring decay as one half of the cosmic balance. Here, continuity is shattered. Hermetic, apocalyptic authority gives way to a counterforce that multiplies life without constraint. If you're still looking for the catch, ask what it would actually take for Galactus's change to be a natural progression instead of an existential reset. To buy the usual explanation, you'd need it to be an evolution, hunger simply replaced by enlightenment, the old status rebalanced by some cyclical necessity. But that's not what the evidence shows. The shift is triggered externally, unasked. Galactus doesn't choose, he's altered. The cosmic order is dramatically shifted, changing perceptions of Galactus's place in the universe. The transformation upsets the previous cosmic balance, so the question hangs over the universe, unsolved. If Galactus can reverse polarity at the push of a button, Was there ever really a fundamental cosmic order at all, or just the appearance of one? And who, if anyone, is holding the real balance now? God Emperor Doom. Dr. Doom absorbed the Beyonders and became omnipotent ruler of Battleworld during Secret Wars, changing the laws of existence itself. The Beyonders dismantled the multiverse's cosmic entities, destroying celestials and collapsing reality's foundation. Doom didn't stop them. He absorbed their power and emerged as a being who could rewrite reality on a whim. He assembled Battleworld from the fragments of a shattered multiverse. Barons ruled territories within Battleworld at the discretion of Doom. Reed Richards opposed Doom, but Doom's omnipotence overwhelmed him. Sue Storm was under Doom's control during his rule. The Maker's schemes were unsuccessful against God Emperor Doom. Galactus served as an agent for Doom during Battleworld. Battleworld's reality was defined by Doom's decisions. Here's where it gets worse. Battleworld was shaped by Doom's will, including suffering that could have been alleviated. Civilizations rose and fell on Battleworld under Doom's rule. Doom confronted the consequences of his choices under Omnipotence. Doom responded to incursions by annihilating worlds to protect Battleworld. Doom ended threats from challengers who opposed him. Doom exercised ultimate power over Battleworld, shaping its fate. God Emperor Doom represented absolute authority and unchecked power. King Thor. King Thor is a future version of Thor Odinson who inherits the Odin Force and rules Asgard. King Thor wielded Mjolnir and possessed the Odin Force, ruling Asgard with the power of Odin's legacy. King Thor commanded the Nine Realms with the authority of Odin. King Thor survived Ragnarok and continued to rule after Asgard endured its cycles. Old King Thanos. King Thor at least inherited the Odin Force, his power legitimated by the structure he was born into. Old King Thanos answered to no structure at all. War Thor. Here's the sequence. Astral Regulator Thanos. What Old King Thanos achieved by killing abstract entities and absorbing death seems almost restrained next to this. Eternity is the personification of the Marvel Universe.